Thanks for being here, everybody. It's a very exciting day for us. We are here to announce the launch of the Law Enforcement Treatment Initiative here in Snyder County, also known as LETI. As DA, my job is safety and accountability, and I know firsthand the devastation that drug overdoses brings to our communities. The LETI program is designed to do two things. It's to save lives and reduce crime. I also have seen firsthand the successes of our treatment court program. The intensive supervision and services connecting individuals with substance abuse disorders to services is critical to getting them into recovery and keeping them in recovery. And the stats don't lie. Our treatment court participants have a lower recidivism rate than national statistics, regional, state statistics. So that is a huge success for our treatment court because not only are we getting people into recovery, keeping them there, but it's also a crime prevention tool. And that's part of what LETI is. It's the other end of the spectrum. The treatment court program is at the back end of the criminal justice system. LETI is at the front end. Our law enforcement officers are on the front lines dealing with people every day in crisis, including those with addiction. This gives them another tool to make direct referrals to our single county authority, CMSU. And I want to thank them for their participation, their cooperation. This is a collaboration. No one agency, department, system can do it on its own. It's a collaboration and a partnership, not just with those other agencies, including the AG's office, but also those individuals, because everyone has a stake in this, and it gives them an opportunity and incentive to create that internal motivation to get into recovery and stay there. We can give them all the external motivation we want through the criminal justice system, but they won't stay in recovery unless they earn and gain the tools to stay there. And that's the big part of this program. Our law enforcement officers see every day the folks who need these services most. Maybe they come in contact with them because of crisis, because they're there for an arrest, or maybe they're just there because a concerned neighbor or loved one came to them and said, I got a loved one who needs help. This is going to create 3 tiers. The first tier is that individuals who come to law enforcement and say, I need help. And believe it or not, that happens, and it has happened, and it will happen even more once we get the word out that these services are available. To reduce the stigma of asking for help, even to law enforcement, to take away the stigma that these guys are just here to slap handcuffs on people. That's not their primary job. Their primary job is public safety, and that includes connecting folks who need help with the help that they need. The second tier is diversion. Folks with low-level offenses, whether it's paraphernalia, simple possession, minor theft crimes that have their root cause in addiction, those offenses can be diverted. We can withdraw charges if they successfully enroll and complete the treatment that they need. That's the carrot. No one's earning a free pass, and let me be clear about this. This is not decriminalization. Whatever you hear about LETI, this is not decriminalization. This is destigmatization. Is that the right word? Right?
Works.
Yeah, we're going to destigmatize getting help. And we're going to give people incentives and say, if you want to get accountable, if you want to help increase safety in our communities, we're going to give you the tools to do that. So it's really a pleasure for me today to have General Shapiro here with us. His office has been a very strong partner with Snyder County and my office on many projects. On one end, grand jury investigations of drug cases, but on this end, on the front end of this, with the LETI program. So I want to turn it over to him for a few remarks.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, General.
Well, thank you, Mr. District Attorney. Mike Pietza and I have been colleagues and friends for many years. He does an outstanding job here in Snyder County, and it is really a pleasure to be here with him and with all of you. Pastor, thank you very much. Chief, thank you. Barb, to the men in blue, thank you very much for your service in our community. We appreciate you, and we have your back. It is my pleasure to also be here with Dr. Janine Holter from the Office of Attorney General, who's done outstanding work as the head of my Office of Strategic Initiatives. We cannot make strides toward addressing the opioid epidemic without this coalition of partners standing with me today, and without the very important LETI initiative. We know that we have a responsibility to work together to address this crisis, a crisis that in 2020 claimed the lives of 5,172 Pennsylvanians. To put that into some perspective for you, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and the next day and the next day, we will lose 14 Pennsylvanians. 14 mothers and daughters and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles who will succumb to the disease of addiction. It is indeed upon all of us. We have a responsibility to do our part to try and address that. And we are doing that here together in Snyder County. The Office of Attorney General battles this crisis on all fronts, targeting the dealers who are poisoning our communities, holding drug companies accountable, and of course trying to bolster treatment wherever we can. Since 2017, I think this is an important point given the district attorney's comment that this is not decriminalization. Hear me on this. Since 2017, we have arrested more than 6,300 mid and high-level drug dealers and traffickers all across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We've taken approximately 6.7 million doses of opioids like heroin and fentanyl off of our streets, away from people who could abuse them. And our arrests for diversion, when a doctor, nurse, some kind of healthcare provider diverts a legal prescription drug for illegal use, well, our arrests for diversion are up 58% over the course of the last few years. We've taken on some of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world who manufactured this crisis, like Purdue Pharma that made the drug OxyContin. They engaged in a process to manufacture this crisis that we find ourselves in today. We secured $25 million for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for treatment from a company called McKinsey that did PR for Purdue. And I have led, together with 3 other attorneys general across the country, a coalition of 40 states to bring back more than $26 billion nationwide from drug manufacturers and distributors. What does that mean for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania will receive $1.1 billion from those manufacturers to help combat this crisis and provide more treatment in communities across Pennsylvania. What does that mean for Snyder County? It means specifically that just over $1 million will come back to Snyder County alone to assist in treatment right here and complement the important work that the DA and the Human Services offices, your county commissioners, law enforcement, and others are engaged in. I think we in law enforcement all understand that we cannot arrest our way out of this crisis. And importantly, we believe in the Office of Attorney General that drug addiction is a disease, not a crime. And no matter where I go in the Commonwealth, one thing I hear is that we need more and easier access to treatment for family and friends and loved ones who are battling this disease of addiction. LETI, or the Law Enforcement Treatment Initiative, is one key part of connecting the dots for people and getting them into treatment. This initiative focuses on accessibility. Look, sometimes people who are suffering just simply don't know where to turn. We've got to make sure that they have the avenues and the options to get the help that they need. And oftentimes they don't know who to trust. So today, my office, together with the district attorney, the chief of police, and others, are saying quite clearly, you can turn to us, and we are here to help you. We launched this program in Somerset County back in 2018. We've been expanding ever since. Under the leadership of Dr. Holter, we help law enforcement connect people who need help to treatment in their local community through the assistance of local law enforcement and county drug and alcohol treatment services and offices. Hundreds of individuals, thanks to this program, have been referred into treatment, and they are now working toward recovery. By getting law enforcement involved in this process, we're also helping, as the district attorney said, minimize the stigma associated with getting help and letting people know that they can turn to those trusted people in their community, the people in uniform, the people in law enforcement who are here, and we're saying we're here to help you. So I came here today to say thank you to Snyder County for joining us in this important effort. And it's important to note that as a matter of policy, while there may be members of one particular police department who are standing here today, this initiative includes all law enforcement across this county, such as the Sheriff's Department, probation and parole, Many other agencies are involved, and that is critically important. It's also important for you to note that you are the 13th, the lucky 13th county to join this initiative, and more will be coming on board soon. It takes a process to get counties ready, and Snyder County has gone through the hard work necessary to make this work. Look, I believe that everyone must do their part, as I said before, to help us deal with this crisis and battle back against those and help those who are battling the disease of addiction. Law enforcement, citizens, neighbor, and family, all coming together in common purpose to fight this epidemic. We know that if there isn't more access to treatment, more beds, easier ways to find them, a reduction in the stigma associated with raising your hand and asking for help, that we will lose more lives. And instead, we are collectively committing ourselves to trying to make sure that we save lives and we put people on a path toward recovery. What we're doing here in Snyder County is providing a safe haven for people to ask for help and a warm, trusted hand to guide you through the treatment process. Look, in law enforcement, we're going to continue to work to get these poisons out of our neighborhoods, to make sure we hold accountable those who peddle these poisons in our communities. But we're also going to work together to get people the help that they need. And so with that, I want to thank Snyder County for stepping up, for doing their part, and for making a real difference in people's lives. And with that, I will hand it back to our District Attorney, Mike Pietsu. Thank you.
Next, I'd like Chief Tim Bremigen from Shamokin Dam to take the podium and talk a little bit about LETI from his perspective. Chief?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up here. And obviously, special thank you to the doctor, DA Mike Pietsu, and obviously General Shapiro for actually taking a concern, with such a project. I won't go into too much with what LETI is about. I think that the DA pretty much explained that quite well. But I think what I'm more or less here to do is to kind of, again, reiterate the fact that this isn't about decriminalizing. There are people that we come across, in law enforcement every day, that we see that need help. This project here is actually something that is going to allow us to keep our loved ones from going into the criminal system. We're hoping that's what it does. Arrest is something that takes place later on, and it can actually mess up people's lives. With any of that type of stuff. I can't stress enough, this is not and some people, I used to, the 27 years of law enforcement, you come out with something like this and it's, we're hugging thugs and everything. That's not what this is about. This is about hugging loved ones, taking care of the people that are in our communities. The thugs, we'll give them a hug in a different fashion, I guess you could say. But that's what's really important to understand with this project. As I'm sure we all know, it not only affects the family, but it's going to affect everything with drugs. It affects us not only on a social but an economically front as well. So with that being said, I'll just close with this. I'm very passionate about this program. I think and I believe that it is something that is going to work. From my own personal experiences, I've been touched with what drug abuse can do on not only through my career, but also on a personal level, where I lost a family member. And with that being said, if I watched somebody that had a degree in kinesiology from Penn State and nursing and actually worked in drug and rehab. Ended up with an injury and, was prescribed some prescription medication that stops. And then, where do we score it next? Well, it's on the street. And it wasn't shortly, it was probably 9 months later, he was dead. So those are things that I look at. The other thing I looked at is the fact that, there was a young man that we dealt with, quite often, on smaller levels with drug use and everything. Maybe if we'd have had a program like this, it would have kept him out of the criminal justice system. Because I looked at him and he did recover, later. However, he had also we had also arrested him for a drug or a drug delivery. So it gravitated to a felony level. In talking to him several years later, here he is, he's cleaned up, he's sober and all that, but he can't go out now and get himself a job. Let's go one step further. He talked about the fact that he can't even apply for federal loans. This type of initiative, I think, is very important because it's going to allow correction before it gets into the justice system. So, with that, I look forward to my officers. I know we're excited about the training and everything that's going to be coming up with it, and putting our efforts together with the community. So, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Next, I'd like to invite to the podium Barbara Gorell. She's the director of CMSU and our partner in connecting folks with services and treatment.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not the director of CMSU. I wish I was.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm the administrator of the drug and alcohol component.
The most important part of CMSU.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I don't know. I'm just going to make the assumption, but maybe I shouldn't. CMSU stands for Columbia, Montour, Snyder, and Union counties. We serve all four. And I like to say with the support of our county government, we do that quite well. The economy of scale and the resources that are brought to us from federal and state levels and the way that we've organized ourselves helps us do that in a way that I think is both efficient and productive. So there were a couple things that I wanted to say, and General Shapiro touched on one of them, which is how difficult it is sometimes to get treatment. And I say that as someone who works in the field. It's not that it's so difficult, it's difficult when people are in crisis. And oftentimes we don't have the outreach to meet them where they are at when they are in crisis. So although we as professionals in the field know all the resources and will go above and beyond whatever it takes to find that resource for individuals, getting to them sometimes and engaging them is the difficult part. Once engaged, keeping them. So we are just the beginning step of that. When Janine contacted us and told us that there was interest in Snyder County, which I already knew there was, they've been interested in years with connecting with, putting the pieces together to ensure people get treatment in an expedient manner. But to take this formal step with the LETI program, I was delighted because we were prepared for that. That's what we do. Our organization already is required to have 24/7 access to emergent care for individuals in need. So linking that together with law enforcement was the next right thing to do. I don't know what else to say beyond that. We as an agency, our primary function with getting people enrolled in treatment is to assess them and ensure that they get the right level of care. I'd like to say that we're pretty good at that, and we have 5 case managers working, who have learned the system, if you will. So they know, for example, if an individual that they're meeting with has certain needs, they will be able to determine not only what level of care they need, but also what facility will best provide that for that individual, based on their age, based on a number of factors. The level, I don't know, I'm at a loss right now, but there are many factors that they're looking at to be able to say facility X would best suit this individual. So we're there, we're ready with open arms to accept referrals. We're again delighted and excited about the opportunity to work with law enforcement. We've always had a good partnership here, and we've worked very well with the treatment court, so we already have some of those connections in place. I think we started in 2011?
Yep, yep.
Okay. Is that right? No, 2008, treatment
No,
court.
you're right, it was 2008.
2008.
Yep,
2011 was our other jurisdiction, Columbia Montour. So you're pretty
I'm
much the
agreeable
experts
to-
now. So, at any rate, I'd be delighted to take any questions you may have, but that's what CMSU does. So we're ready and able to work in this initiative.
Thank you.
That connection there with CMSU is going to be critical. Erica is going to be our point person there, knowing her through the treatment court team. That team is the gold standard. So I have every faith and confidence that we're not committing people to a referral where it's going to fall into a black hole. That's simply not going to happen for a couple of reasons. One, because the people behind that referral are too good, and because we're not going to invest in a program that's going to leave people hanging. What's the best way for people to stop calling for a resource is if they're left hanging. That's not going to happen. That's our commitment to everybody here today. That's why it's so important to have that broad support from Barb and the commissioners it's a joinder board that runs CMSU, right? So the joinder board, Mayor Joe McGranahan from Shamokin Dam, without his support, without the guidance of our political leaders here in Snyder County, it has to start at the bottom of the chain, so to speak, on the front lines. And having chiefs like Chief Bremigen and his folks, probation, sheriff's office, that's where that first contact's going to come. But the political support, the organizational support, the agency support, that's what's going to be critical for the follow-through, and that's what's going to get people into recovery and keep them there. And some other leaders from the recovery community, it's important too. That's why we're here today, get the word out to everybody. We're preaching to the choir when we're talking to each other and talking about how wonderful each other are about doing this, but the main purpose is to get the word out to the folks who need these services the most. And so the next person I want to introduce is someone who's very active in the recovery community and is doing amazing work there, and it's Pastor Billy Roble.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thanks, Janine, for having me and inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to represent those in recovery. I firsthand know the experience of addiction, my family, my wife, my children. I put them through literal hell. And those of us who know what addiction does to families, it tears them apart. And so to have this opportunity to really be the boots on the ground in our area, as was said already, people are in crisis, and to be able to meet them where they're at, with the resources that are available. So many of these folks don't realize that these resources are available to them, nor do they know that we are willing to help them, instead of just, like you said, putting cuffs on them and they feel almost forgotten. But to know that they're not forgotten, that we as a community care for these people, because it hits close to home for each one of us. Each one of us has someone in our family that's been affected by the disease of addiction. And so I love this program. I think it's an incredible opportunity. So many people that battle with addiction need that step of encouragement to get treatment, to seek treatment. And whatever we can do in pulling our resources together, which I think is great that there's so many different pieces to this to help initiate treatment for these folks, to get them to look at themselves. Anyone who's in recovery knows that addiction really is just a symptom of the problem. The substance isn't the problem. I've seen so many people put down the substance, but then they end up relapsing later on because they don't deal with the trauma trauma that's related to addiction. And so that's where we come in at the Recovery Church over in Sunbury, and really helping people to deal with their trauma. And so my first stint at treatment, I was young. I was arrested in Philadelphia as a juvenile, and this was long before LETI, long before there was drug courts or anything like that. But I'm so thankful that those people saw the need for me to go to treatment. I mean, even my probation officer, they encouraged treatment, and they forced me a little bit. You know, they forced the hand, but it's what I needed. And so I needed that hand to get me into treatment. And from that point, you know, it really changed my outlook on. I knew that I wasn't alone, and people need to understand that they're not alone. There's other people who've been through addiction that understand what people are going through, the battle that they face going forward. That's why I'm here to represent the recovering community, to say, hey, this is possible. Yeah, that step into treatment is scary, because for many of us, the substance, it's our only means to take care of our needs, even though it's destroying our life in the process. But to know that there's another solution out there, and that is treatment, and it is recovery, and it is support groups, and can be faith for some people. And the more opportunities we can present to these folks, the better chance they have in making it. And I know for me, just being able to serve back into the recovering community and to help those on the streets, I mean, I thought they'd be afraid to come to ask for help, but they're not. Once they know that we care, and that the community, Snyder County, all the counties around us, we care about these people. We don't want to see any more people die from the disease of addiction. It's getting old. We've lost too many people and too many of our loved ones that would have a chance if we could help them. And so I'm just so grateful for the opportunity that's presented through the LETI program. I believe it's going to help change many, many lives and get them in the process of recovery. And so whatever we can do from our Recovery Church in Sunbury, we'd love to support all the resources of Snyder County and what y'all are doing. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. That's it from us. We are happy to answer any questions folks have about the LETI program.
I know you mentioned it, General Shapiro, about how it's being paid for. Can you talk a little bit about that again? Because you brushed on it, I think.
Yeah,
How it's being funded.
It depends, right? It depends on where the person's getting treatment, and who is covering that, whether it's private pay, Medicaid, whatever the case may be. But in terms of the outlay of resources to get this going, that's coming out of my office with resources that we've been given by the legislature and the governor, that we've committed to this cause through Dr. Holter's effort. Her work then goes to help work with chiefs and marry law enforcement up together with the treatment community to make sure that those dots are connected. So that work getting started really is borne by my office, thanks to the investment of the legislature and the governor. And then as it relates to individual treatment from there, that would be more of an issue here on the ground.
And, Officer, excuse me, Chief Bremigen, you spoke a little bit about, what you see on a daily basis, but do you believe that people will actually ask for help or be willing?
I do believe that people will be asking for help and be willing to do that. Prior to the LETI project, our department was already kind of doing this, wherein I can give a few examples where we came across somebody, we used our own discretion, but you could tell that they had support from the family. And that is really what is important, and that's what we're doing here, is working with the family, working with people. And with that being said, yeah, I believe that this is just the whole idea, and what the doctor has done with setting up this whole program. Okay, it allows there's a policy in play. Okay, so it gives guidance to the officer, whereas prior to this, we didn't have a guidance, with that.
Are they training you?
Yes, we will be. Yep, we'll be being trained. It's I believe it's like a 4-hour block, and from my understanding, there's also MOPEC credits that are available to it also. So.
And everybody's bought into this?
What's that?
Yeah.
Everybody has bought into it?
Yeah. Yeah, one of the important structures of the policy is that officer discretion is built into it, because every situation is different. The needs of every individual they come into is different. So it creates a policy and a protocol for them to follow, but there's different off-ramps along the way. But it's standardized so that they're not having to make up decision-making data points on the fly. So it's still officer discretion. That was very, very important, because even within Snyder County, each of our communities are different. And I can tell you that, I won't identify which department, but we have had individuals walk into a police department, knock on the door and say, please arrest me, I need help. Okay? So how about if we not arrest you and get you help? Even better. And this is going to give them a policy so that they're not just kind of on their own, making those types of decisions. They know that if they make that decision, they're going to have the support and the backup of the policy and leadership, both in their chain of command, but also the political leaders in their community.
And the program was launched in 2018. You said hundreds of people. Do you have any more solid statistics?
I mean, we can give you the specific number as we get them back from the various departments, but the good news is it's well over 100, and we have people who are on the road to recovery. And if I may, I just want to maybe put an exclamation point on something both the chief and the DA said. What was the word you used? I think destigmatization?
Yes.
Yeah.
If it's not a word, I made it up.
If it's not a word, don't use that in your story. Use the proper word if you don't mind.
Trademarked.
But the DA made a great point in sharing that example with you. Someone needed help, and they walked into their local police department. Do you know why they did that? They did that because they trust local police. And that is why this initiative is so important. If we're going to try and destigmatize people asking for help, then we need to go to the people that they trust in their community and empower them to connect the dots to get them into the treatment that they need. And by the chief saying, look, we're going to go through this training, we're going to be committed to this, that's taking a trusted voice in the community, and it's helping someone who is in need. And because these officers obviously have the discretion that they should have, on a case-by-case basis, they can make the right judgment as to what's necessary. But when they elect to help someone get into treatment now, that's going to help, change a lot of minds and attitudes, and most importantly, get someone the help that they need. Anything else?
Is there a hotline that someone can call for the community if they need help?
800-222-9016.
Barb was standing in front of it. It's okay.
Well, that's what we have for you here today. It's really an honor and a privilege to stand here with General Shapiro and all these folks to launch this initiative. We'll stick around if there's any other questions that you have. If we don't have the answers today, we'll look at Dr. Halter and we'll get the answers for you. But thank you for being here today.
Good. Thank you all. Good job.